it could be extremely problematic if men don't understand how to regulate their emotions, right? From young, we are taught, no, you don't need to be crying for that. You know, stop. And to be honest, I'm guilty of it too, because there's certain situations that you really shouldn't be crying about. It's only acceptable for us to cry at certain times, right? So if you see your son crying over something he shouldn't, you got to stop that. Um, there's a balance like everything else in life. Some of us go overboard and try to, run a house like it's the military. We understand that. But for us to also be problem solvers, and as it is expected of us to manage or regulate women's emotions as well, we can't ever go over the deep end. We can't be over the edge because it all falls on us. If we collapse, the household collapses with it. We have to behave in that way. Now, I'll say something a little bit different than Marcus said, because I know he was saying that anger is like the only socially acceptable ones. I mean, that you can't exclude somebody being happy, right? If something's going on with your children, you expect it to cry sometime. If you watch your child lose his life, you're going to be like that. If you're not crying, you're not a human being. It's just a time and a place for it, right? If you lose a loved one, you're expected to cry. And I don't think that your woman or your peers is going to view you as soft because you're crying from losing a loved one, right? So it's just a balance, right? You have to also be soft with the woman, right? So you have to understand how to be tender. Like, that's just what it is. There's other acceptable emotions. It's just about knowing how to regulate them and how to balance them.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that too. I think it's key that we talk about emotional intelligence within a relationship, not just like as single individuals. So when you have an emotional intelligence, it has to be a balance, right? With like you said, it's reciprocal, Ali. Like, so we all know how to be emotional intelligent based off of our perspective, the way we was raised. Like a man has to be emotional intelligence when we out in the workforce. We already know that. We can't get too angry when the police pull us over, or we can't do this. We know how to be emotionally intelligent when it comes to survival. We may not be as best when it comes to being able to be with a woman and learn how to be a little bit more soft and turn that off to your point. But that brings me to back to my initial point is everybody has to have a role in a relationship. You can't have reciprocation without somebody bringing something to the table to help the other person. So that if a woman is naturally supposed to be better at that, to whatever statistics Ali that you were saying, then that's in my opinion that should be her role versus my role is to be able to handle things out when somebody busts through the door, be able to kill that nigga and protect my family and have to be able to sleep with that at night. That's a different type of emotional intelligence that a man may have to have versus a woman may have to have. A man would never have to want to put that woman in that position. That's a different emotional intelligence. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm saying. If we're talking about emotional intelligence in a relationship, it takes two people to understand that person's process and their emotional intelligence journey.
All right.
Yeah, I agree with you, Trev, on those other emotions. So I thought the question was more towards, um, yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Like we can experience happiness, um, to an extent, right? Because if a man is too happy and jumping around, it comes off away, and we got a term for that, right? Like if you see men frolicking and just we look at that away as men, Um, we have a cap limit to how far we can go with something. So even sadness, it's at some point you got to stop and pick yourself up and move forward. It's how it's viewed generally in society. You can't wallow in it. Um, so when I'm saying what's acceptable is I'm speaking to the terms of the limit in which you can go. There's a little bit of deference allowed for each emotion, but you can't be in the deep end as a man. And I think that's with a good purpose because you would destabilize your home by being too far. If you walk around when something happens and you pouting and you ain't you teaching the people who are looking up to you within the household, that's how they behave. One, so you're setting a bad example, right? Because you don't want to incentivize that type of behavior or teach that type of behavior. The other thing is you won't never solve nothing because you will be stuck in that place. I very much believe masculinity is doing, right. So it's looking for the solution within the problem. You can allow yourself to feel, but you got to move forward to what's the resolve to this at all times. I'm trying to, I give myself a minute, process it. Okay, XYZ. What is the solution? How do we move forward so I can get back to being in a peaceful state?
Right. Because if you got people depending on you, you're going to have to do that. Like, if most women going to run around here saying a man got to do this, a man 80%, whatever 100, whatever it is, like, damn, if she pregnant for 9 months and I'm down, I could sit up here and be sad and be or overly excited and be, oh yeah, I'm having a baby, just chill. Or it's like, no, sad, mad, regardless. Like, nigga, you got to take care of your family. Like, this is so it's different. Like, that's, to me, again, like, emotional intelligence comes in all different shapes or forms. But at the end of the day, when it comes to a relationship, how to deal with a woman, I think that's the real conversation we should, the video is really talking about. Back to the subject, like that's what I believe.
I think that both of y'all are kind of like off when it comes to the definition of emotional intelligence. You think that being emotional intelligence means pouting, because you mentioned pouting, Marcus, and Daryl, you mentioned that you got to get back to the money. You can't really. Being emotionally intelligent means you're able to identify your emotions, process it, and articulate it without causing conflict. And if it is a conflict,
I know that you can have conflict. You can.
So that doesn't mean, Daryl, let me finish, because I let you finish. That doesn't mean that you pout. That's the opposite of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence means instead of let me finish, Daryl. Emotional intelligence means instead of pouting, that I'm going to realize how I'm feeling. I'm going to regulate my body, and I'm going to be able to express my emotions without causing conflict. That is the definition of emotional intelligence. It's not pouting. It's not crying, because like Paris said, those are responses from the emotion.
Right, but we're just using that as an example. It's just an example. Like, we're not saying that that's what it is, but
so I'm saying, what I'm saying is, you said that men can't.
We're using it as an example, man. Like when you're bringing up a point, you're just bringing out examples as to an emotional reaction.
But that's not an example of emotional intelligence.
But it is in the context. If you were listening based on what we were talking about, in the context of what we're using it,
it's not.
Ali, you're not using emotional intelligence right now.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm trying to explain to you. You're trying to speak on what I said, what Marcus was saying.
Make a point, Daryl. What's your point then?
My point is that you're absolutely incorrect in terms of
what am I incorrect on?
And what your definition of emotional intelligence is.
That's not true. Paris, what's the definition of emotional intelligence?
We don't care. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. Nobody gives a damn.
Cloud Jones just put it in the comments.
That's why women are shaming.
Trev said the damn definition in the damn video. If y'all didn't get it,
there we go.
Shut up.
So Ali, I think it might have been a misunderstanding. The definition that Cloud just dropped in the whatchamacallit, that's what I described earlier. I was saying this is what we can't do. That would be an example of being overly emotional as men. It wasn't to say that that's what emotional intelligence in men looks like.
It's an example.
An example of what overly emotional is and why we can't be that way.
I think you need to stop being so emotional and just listen and just have a conversation. I think that would be best. So I know you don't want to take instructions from a man.
I mean, we got to go back up.
It's just a suggestion.
Y'all got to understand. There's a purpose in communication, and the purpose in communication is communicating and not trying to be goddamn right. All y'all just want to be right. That's the goddamn problem.